Hi Mom, I wanted to show you the wedding quilt that I made. Susan's son James, he's getting married the 1st of March. And it's got this wonderful minky, it's so soft, it's so beautiful. It's got rose minky on the inside. I put a couple of 6-inch borders on it, super easy, super quick. It says, "Twinkle, twinkle, I love you to the moon and back." I think that's cute. And it just turned out so nice, so fuzzy. I hope they love it. Just wanted to show you. I pack it up. Love you. If this is your first time here, I would love for you to subscribe because this channel is all about creativity and inspiration. I hope you feel inspired to create something amazing. Feel free to share the inspiration because life is a journey we make together. And now I'll show you how this creative project was done. I love starting new projects. I love quilting. And I am going to make a fabulous new quilt. Got a couple of other fabrics that I'm going to put the scroll on the sides. And I'm going to put 6-inch borders all the way around it with this beautiful "I love you to the moon and back." So fun, so quick, so easy. 6-inch strips. All there is to cut my strips into 6 inches. I love 6 inches. I can cut it also in half and make the binding out of the 3-inch, so I love that. With flannel, you definitely have to wash it beforehand. Make sure that you dry it. It ravels up. You have to just kind of take your scissors and cut that off, and you always have to add a little more to what you're buying because it does shrink a lot. So the first thing I'm going to do after I've washed and dried my fabric is I am going to press it, and I'm going to make 6-inch strips. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to have to join these words. Fabric's 42 inches. My quilt is probably going to be around 62, so I'm going to have to join these. So I want to be particularly mindful of where I cut. My strips are going to be 6 inches, but I am going, and then like my seams are 1/4 inch. Right, so you can kind of see where it's going to fall. Repeat the process. Looking for words that will match. Press it where I want it. Seam to be. And it's never going to match up exactly. So I have my piece penned, and I have it marked by my crease, by my iron, so I'm going to sew directly on that line. Follow the crease line. Open it up. press my seams open. And there is my crease. Not bad, not bad. So when taking off the last tails of your project, you want to try to square up as much as possible, and I like to put the line of my acrylic ruler on my project on that seam. And see, I have a little bit of batting that's out that I'd like to go ahead and remove at this time. I'm going to square up all that I can here. You can move your fabric around, make sure that it's just as square as it can be. This seam is a little thick. You might have a little bit of, you need to put a little bit more pressure on that seam right there. So when I put my binding on, I always give myself plenty of room to attach it. I'm going to have to come around this corner and then join the pieces. So in fact, I just want to bump it down a little bit. I give myself 10, 12 inches, and then I attach it to the right side. This has flannel on both sides, so the Minky is not going to travel so much and I can see it, so I don't even know that I necessarily have to pin it. I just have to make sure that everything is lined up. And I'm going to take like a 5/8 seam on this, wrap it around, and then we'll sew it onto the other side once I get it secured. And here's a tip. If you put in a seam and had to take it out and you have all the threads around, if you take some tape it's magic. Now on my machine, I have the ability to kick over my needle, and when on my bindings, I really like to bump it over just a bit. Make sure that everything gets all lined up. If you're more comfortable with pinning it as you go. So I'm coming upon another corner, and I'm going to sew to right here and turn my project, sew right off to the end. Placing my binding right on top of itself, lining up both sides. And continuing on. Now this is the side that I'm going to have to join my binding. So at this point, I am going to sew a couple more stitches. I'll even back stitch it, and I'm going to take it out of the machine so I can cut the binding. So I know my seam allowance, which is very important. because what you're going to do after this is all laid out flat, and that is important too. So let me take it over here. So I have my quilt all laid out, and I know exactly where I am going to need to cut by extending my top piece that much more than my bottom piece. So I am going to be cutting right here. That I can get it straight. That looks good. Actually, I think this is the scariest part, because if you cut it wrong, it's not an easy fix. But if you measure, it should be fine. We're going to pin these together because Minky slips, slides every which way. Pin the ends first, put one right in the middle, and so right across. And you noticed I did not take off the selvage. Not a problem. Be able to lay it right back in. And continue on. And look at that, beautiful. So when we take it out, where's that seam? Right up here. Can't even tell. So we're going to wrap this around, and we're going to sew on the other side. No hand sewing required. Makes a beautiful binding. So let's flip the quilt around. So a lot of times they say to use a serpentine stitch or a zigzag when you're putting your Minky as binding onto your quilt. I've used a overlocking stitch in this case, and you want to put your raw edge right over your seam. And as you attach it will give you an overlocking stitch that secures it, and then you just fluff it up with your fingernail or whatever works for you, and then you can hardly see the stitches. So this is what it's going to look like after you've put it on, and then magically they just disappear. Awesome. So I've used an overlocking stitch on the raw edge of the Minky binding, and you can see when it's sewn, you can definitely see the stitches. But if you take something, even your fingernail, and just get the Minky through the stitches, they totally disappear and you can't even tell. And this is a fast, easy way versus putting your binding on by hand. It's great for a baby blanket, anything that gets washed a lot, or just if you don't care to put the binding on by hand. It just takes so much longer. And the stitches really do, they just disappear. So you have to do it on both sides. It does take a little bit of time, but not as much as putting the binding on by hand. And then on the back, same thing. Awesome! And my quilt is done. Need to pack it up and get it in the mail before the wedding. Let me lay it out for you. So the wedding quilt is done. It was super easy. Did the 6-inch borders around. I've been making things since I was 3. Creating is my happy place and my passion. My hope is that you feel inspired as a result of watching my videos and create something incredible. I would love to hear about it by leaving me a comment below and give a thumbs up for other interested viewers.